Okay, so today we're going to talk about the different ways that heat is transferred and moved around, right? So you've already learned that there are three main words: heat, thermal energy, and temperature. Okay, and so today I want to focus on a few other vocabulary words that I think actually you might already know, and these are all part of what's called the phase change triangle. All right, so we're going to draw our triangle, and if you have your course pack open to page 11, then there should already be a triangle there for you. Okay, so what are the states of matter? Who can name the states of matter? Grace?
Solid, liquid, gas, and plasma.
Solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Perfect. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to write plasma over here, and I'm going to put it in its own little cloud, because plasma is really an electrically charged gas. Remember when we've been talking about ions when we were doing chemistry? Plasma is an ionized gas. Okay? It means it's all ions. And so that's what makes it different. But then we'll write gas over here. All right? And we'll put liquid here. And solid here. All right. So, how are we doing so far? Yes? Did we already all know these four states of matter? So the next thing we want to do is we want to talk about the words we're going to use to describe when something goes from one state of matter to another state of matter. When something goes from one state of matter to another state of matter, that's a physical change. Okay? So if actually I mixed these up. Sorry. I'm going to change that really fast. It doesn't matter on yours as long, it does matter actually, so go ahead and make sure you put it on the right side. All right, so we want to look at this like a pyramid that's outside, okay? And if the pyramid was outside and it was raining, okay, then the rain would go down, run down the outside of the pyramid. Okay? And we want to imagine that if we're in our little teepee and it's raining outside, we're probably making some tea. And when we make some tea, okay, all of that nice hot air is going to rise up. Okay? So let's start with these. If I have a gas and it's going to become a liquid. If I have a gas and it's going to become a liquid, what is the word for that? Ideas? Think about weather.
Precipitation.
Not precipitation. Precipitation is what happens when the liquid gets so heavy and it falls down. Evaporation is when maybe you have like a puddle or something, right? And the water rises.
Condensation.
Okay? Condensation. That's exactly right. Condensation is when a gas becomes a liquid. Okay? Condensation is when a gas becomes a liquid. All right? And you guys said evaporation, right? Evaporation is specifically for things like water, but you can take all sorts of liquids and make them gases. And that is called, any ideas? Starts with a V.
Vapor.
There we go. Vaporization is right. You're pretty close there. All right. Go ahead and pause. Okay. So the next ones that I'm sure you're going to know is, what if I take a solid and I want to make it a liquid, like an ice cube?
Tea.
What?
What is it called when a solid becomes a liquid? What is that process? Melting. Yes. You guys, these are not hard words. You know them all, actually. You know almost all of them. All right, what is it called? What is it called when a liquid becomes a solid?
Freezing.
Freezing,
I'm
yes.
right.
You guys, these are not tricky. Don't psych yourselves out. Okay, so we have melting and freezing. You guys already know what those words are, right? We have vaporization, which is like evaporation, but for all liquids. We have condensation, which you guys already knew about as well from when you studied weather in 6th grade. So now, these are the hardest ones right over here. Okay, these two over here. So I'm not going to expect you to know them right off the top of your head, but can anyone guess what it's called when a solid becomes a gas? This is, in the winter, even if it's freezing cold outside in like Minnesota and North Dakota and all sorts of other cold places, what they do is they take their clothes and they hang them outside on the line, even though it's winter. And they freeze solid and become like total like little blocks of ice hanging on the line, right? But then the next day you go outside and it's perfectly fine. It's just like it's dry.
It's dry
And that's
outside.
because of a process called sublimation. Sublimation is also what happens when you use dry ice. Okay, so have you ever seen that dry ice where it's a solid and then it just becomes a gas? Okay, that is sublimation. And the last word that you need to know is when a gas becomes a solid. When a gas becomes a solid, we call that deposition. The way that you can remember deposition is because it has the word deposit in it. And if you think about a gas and then all of a sudden it forms like a nice hard solid thing, right? That's definitely a deposition, okay? There's a very bathroomy way to think about it. Like if you walk your dog, he has a lot of gas, and then you take him outside, and there's a solid. It's another, he left a little deposit for you in the grass. That's another way to help you remember, okay? So this is the phase change triangle, and you will have to have this memorized, okay? There's a little quiz, and this is the answer key to the quiz. I'm giving it to you right now, okay?
Literally,
No, there will not necessarily be a word bank.
that's the first summative of them.
That will be one of the summatives you take this quarter. So, yeah, and you got to spell it right? There's not that many words here, okay? But you do have to remember the 4 states of matter: solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. All right? You do have to remember all the names of the different phase changes, okay? Now, the last thing I want to tell you before we move on is that they're different colors for a reason, okay? And they're ones that I wrote on the inside are on the inside for a reason, okay? There's 2 more words that you need to know that you may have learned in your reading. One is called endothermic, and the other one is called exothermic.
Oh yeah.
Okay? Based on what you've learned before in science classes, what do we think endo means?
Inside.
Inside. Good. So what happens when there's a reaction that's endothermic is that it's going to take heat in. And that makes sense, right? If you are going to make a liquid into a gas, aren't you going to have to add some heat to that situation?
Yeah.
Or if you're going to melt a solid and make it into a liquid?
That's why they're inside.
And that's why they're inside, because you're going to take all the heat and you're going to bring it inside for these. What does exo mean?
Out.
On the outside, okay? So that's why I like to write those on the outside. And exothermic means that whenever you have a reaction like this, that means that things are going to push their energy out, okay? And once the energy goes out, then it's going to lose some of its kinetic energy. And once it loses that, it gets colder. The most important thing I can tell you about heat, the thing you definitely don't want to forget, is that there's no such thing as cold. Nothing. In science, there is no such thing as cold. There's only not enough heat. Okay? There's no such thing as cold. Do you ever like look at a thermometer, right? And you're like, oh, well, let me measure how much cold there is. No. The thermometer measures how much energy, okay, is going on in those particles, and that is a measure of the heat. Okay, so the temperature we use is measuring that energy. So there's no such thing as not any energy there. All right, thank you.